Hey everyone, Evan here with Baritone Studios, and welcome to this episode of The Lore of Halo. Today, we'll be taking a look at our favorite heavy weapons specialist, Jorge-052. Adorned with battle scars of wars past, his armor told the story of a true Spartan, a testament to the conflicts waged over decades. He inspired noble in their darkest hour. And with his hardened voice ringing louder, with every Covenant salvo on his home world of Reach, the destiny of Noble Team was realized, and the survival of humanity secured. In recognition of this, his endless courage, we honor him as the fighting spirit of Noble. Most of us know the story of George, but like many of the other Spartans in the Halo universe, George was more than a man behind a visor. George was the only member of Noble Team to see the same amount of action, if not more, against humans as the Covenant did. Part of this was due to George being a Spartan II in their original purpose, as a way to counteract human militants. George had always been difficult to read by fellow teammates, but was very vocal in his views of supporting provincial self-rule and condemning separatist and insurrectionist movements. His empathy and kindness towards civilians was a trait that few Spartans had, along with his attachment to his home planet of Reach. Sometimes this was a touchy subject between George and Noble, at one point being called sentimental after interacting with a Hungarian-speaking civilian in a very empathic way. In total, George had nearly 30 years of combat experience in his career with no signs of slowing down. Many teammates and service members had described him as inspiring confidence in those around him and being rock solid. Although he was a very big and naturally driven man, George was handpicked for the Spartan II program by Halsey because he often had a solid plan in mind. He preferred to overcome obstacles without bringing more attention than was needed, expending the minimum resources and lives available. While George was extremely brave and exceptionally lucky, Colonel Holland had stated that George was an excellent card player. Towards the end of George's career, he had become a fatalist. He believed that he was past the time span that Spartans should have lived, leading him to taking more calculated risks for the good of his unit and the UNSC. George's equipment was a very unique and iconic combination. His helmet was a Malonier Mark IV Grenadier helmet, with a red/bronze colored visor and UA attachment. On top of already being a big man, his chest piece consisted of a collar/Grenadier UA chest piece and Grenadier knee pads. His left shoulder pad used a Grenadier shoulder and an EVA shoulder for his right. George's forearms both contained a UA/bracer and had supplemental armor on his lower legs as well. On a more unique note, George had a Mark IV/LBEA field case on his back, which was sometimes removed to increase mobility. Unlike other Spartans, George's weapon of choice was his personally modified M24-7H heavy machine gun that he called Atilka, without the shield plating or heat cover on the gun's barrel. George was born on March 5th, 2511, in Palhaza, a small city on the unified Earth government colony world of Reach. Like the other Spartan II candidates, he was abducted and conscripted into the program by Dr. Catherine Halsey in 2517 when he was only 6 years old. He was trained alongside the other 74 kidnapped children by Chief Petty Officer Franklin Mendez and the AI Deja at a secret compound within the FleetCom military complex on planet Reach. On his first day of training, a trainer accidentally called George by the Spanish pronunciation Jorge. George very quickly corrected the trainer and was rewarded with a shock stick for backtalking.
Last one up gets it, Jorge!
My name's pronounced George.
Don't you backtalk me, Jorge!
At age 14, George and the other Spartan II candidates underwent their physical augmentations, codenamed Project Aster. George was one of only 33 candidates to survive the augmentations without any form of physical debilitation. Sometime during the Human Covenant War, George was transferred from the other Spartan IIs, which were under the command of Naval Special Weapons, to the Unified Ground Command Spec War Group 3. There's some speculation as to how this was done. In Halo: The Fall of Reach, Dr. Halsey says that all available Spartans were assigned to the planet Reach for Operation Red Flag. Halsey continues, saying that Grey Team were the only Spartans who were not called up due to their being too far out of contact. She also says that 3 Spartans had been killed and 1 too heavily wounded to continue active duty between 2542 and 2552. A later journal entry by Halsey notes that Halsey had lied sometime during the assembly, specifically the part where she said, quote, "That lie about all the Spartans gathered here, save for Grey, will that come back to haunt me?" End quote. In the same entry, Halsey notes that George is obviously preoccupied, pointing to her lie most likely regarding what George was currently doing. By looking at this and how the dates line up, it's unclear if George was truly wounded during this time. George would then be assigned to Noble Team in April of 2552 as Noble 5, the team's heavy weapons specialist and the only Spartan 2 on the team of Spartan 3s. George would participate in the Battle of Fumarole shortly after joining Noble. During this battle, fellow Noble team member Thom A293 died after sacrificing himself to destroy a Covenant battlecruiser sitting over top the planet Fumarole's capital city. Thom's death deeply affected all the other members of Noble Team, including George. On July 24, 2552, Noble Team investigated an incident at the Visegard Relay, discovering that Covenant forces bypassed Reach's defenses and had already infiltrated key installations and communication centers. During these early parts of the Reach invasion, multiple operations against the Covenant took place that George took part in, including retaking Oni's captured sword base on July 26 and a large-scale battle to neutralize a Covenant spire on August 12th. Following the battle at Surdock Ridge, where George assisted Carter A259 in a coordinating air support, the intense presence of the Covenant supercarrier Long Night of Solace was deemed as a great threat. Noble Team devised Operation Uppercut to deliver a makeshift slipspace bomb to the supercarrier via FSS 1000 Sabre starfighters. After receiving the green light from Colonel Urban Holland, Noble Team helped defend a Sabre research facility before George and Spartan B312 boarded a Sabre to join the Epsilon Eridani fleet in space. After helping repel some Covenant forces, George and Noble 6 escorted the UNSC Savannah in an attempt at commandeering the Covenant corvette Ardent Prayer. The Savannah took fire from the corvette to allow Noble 6 and a team to infiltrate the ship's hull, opening up a hangar to allow a Pelican with George to land inside with the makeshift bomb. The corvette was then hijacked and headed towards the supercarrier to refuel and deliver the bomb. After repelling Covenant forces, George discovered that the team was cut off from their sabers and the Pelican's thrusters were damaged in the firefight. The only way off would be jump and free fall back onto Reach's surface. George also found that the timing device on the bomb's detonator was also damaged during the firefight, and the only way the bomb could detonate was if it was triggered manually. On August 14th, 2552, at the age of 41, George decided to activate the slipspace device himself. George gave Noble 6 his dog tags before pushing him off the corvette. As Noble 6 hurtled towards Reach's surface, George detonated the bomb, opening a slipspace rupture that engulfed the Ardent Prayer and the Long Night of Solace. Operation Uppercut was successful, but at the cost of losing George. Perhaps the worst part is that he didn't know that his sacrifice for Reach was in vain. I remember watching George die for the first time and talking about it still sucks. So there we have it, everything we know about Jorge-052. Thank you all for watching. Let me know who you want to see next in the Halo universe in the comments below and what you thought about the episode. Once again, I'm Evan. with Baritone Studios, and I'll see you next time.